At the NATO summit in the Netherlands, Donald Trump has won an historic commitment from all NATO members, that is the North Atlantic Treaty Organisation, to lift their defence spending to 5% of GDP. This is an astonishing level of spending that's only good news for global security. It's defence commitments like this that will bolster and protect the liberal democracies of Western Europe against Russia, against Iran, against any military threat. And the funding guarantee follows a pattern established in Trump's first term when he pushed NATO hard for increased spending, an outcome he's built on since returning to the White House.
This week, the NATO allies committed to dramatically increase their defence spending to that 5% of GDP, something that no one really thought possible. And they said, "You did it, sir, you did it." Well, I don't know if I did it, but I think I did. This will be known as the Hague Defense Commitment, which is pretty good, pretty appropriate. When the allies reach this number, it will add more than $1 trillion a year. Think of that, $1 trillion per year to our common defense.
Now, before you're put off by Trump's ego yet again, think about how all sides of politics have tried to deliver this outcome. In fact, before Trump first came to office in 2016, the US hoped that maybe one day NATO countries might spend 2% on defence.
The situation in Ukraine reminds us that our freedom isn't free. And we've got to be willing to pay for the assets, the personnel, the training that's required to make sure that we have a credible NATO force and an effective deterrent force.
All NATO members are making the pledge to expand our industrial base and our industrial capacity. Like our defense spending commitment, this is a critical step to maintaining our security.
Yeah, once again, the Democrats are left flat-footed because they've long talked about getting their NATO allies to take up more of the burden, and they've accused Trump of undermining NATO because of the threats he's made to push for additional funding. But here we are, and it's President Trump who has again delivered where his predecessors only talked. And typically, instead of focusing on this historic achievement, much of the media is focused mainly on this exchange about how the Israel-Iran war was brought to an end after only 12 days.
They've had a big fight, like two kids in a schoolyard. You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes, then it's easier to stop them.
And then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language.
You have to use strong language. Every once in a while, you have to use a certain word.
So now the media fuss is all about the term daddy and using it to mock Trump and his allies. This stuff is so puerile. And Trump, of course, just laughs it off, as I'll show you later on. They'll do anything, of course, to avoid having to discuss Trump's achievement. But if you wanted any more evidence of the intellectual gymnastics that Trump haters have to employ to make their case against the president, you only had to listen to ABC Radio this morning. Listen carefully to this exchange with a former US ambassador to NATO.
NATO, compared to what it was 5 years ago, is it stronger now or looking stronger or more diminished than it was previously?
It's in the transition phase. It's certainly stronger because NATO defense spending has been increased for the past decade in a very significant effort. About $600 billion more has been spent than would have otherwise, so that's a significant amount of money. But the pillar of NATO, the core of NATO, was American leadership. That leadership is now being called in question. Not by any of the members, not even by any of the adversaries, but by the United States itself under the leadership of Donald Trump.
Yeah, NATO is stronger because of all the additional funding, but it's weaker because of a lack of US leadership under Trump. This is insanely illogical. The only reason the funding has increased is because Trump has demanded it. So it is precisely because of American leadership under Trump that NATO is stronger. These people will say black is white if it helps with their Trump derangement syndrome. And needless to say, the ABC didn't pick this up or point out or challenge this failed logic. They just amplified it. even considering their political bias, the lack of intellectual integrity is remarkable.